The phone call came at 8:47 a.m. on a Tuesday. I was pouring my second cup of coffee, still in yesterday's jeans, when Brandon Walsh's voice cut through the speaker like a blade. Effective immediately, Michael Thompson is no longer with Harrison Manufacturing. No buildup, no warning, just that one sentence delivered like he was reading stock prices. I'm Mike Thompson, 47 years old, and I'd just been executed in front of the entire management team. My hand stopped halfway to my mouth. The mug felt heavier than it should. I walked back to my desk in what felt like slow motion, staring at my computer screen like maybe I'd heard wrong. I hadn't. The instant messages started flooding in, shocked faces, question marks. Someone even sent a sympathy emoji by mistake. For 17 years, I'd kept their production systems running. I'd rebuilt their entire logistics network when they nearly collapsed during the 2020 supply chain crisis. I'd trained half the engineering team and automated processes that saved them over 1.2 million in efficiency improvements. And now I was out, just like that. No conversation, no warning, nothing. I checked my email. Empty. Opened my calendar. Nothing scheduled. Then I saw the message they'd dropped in the company chat. Some corporate nonsense about restructuring for the future and being grateful for Mike's contributions. Complete garbage. There wasn't even a goodbye email from anyone. That's when I noticed the real knife in the back. They'd already posted my replacement in the internal directory. Some 29-year-old kid with an MIT degree and zero real-world experience. The message was clear. They wanted young blood, and at 47 I was apparently too old to keep up with modern manufacturing practices. My phone buzzed. Text from Linda, my wife. How's your day going? I stared at the message. Linda had been dealing with her heart condition for 14 months now. The cardiology bills were crushing us. Her last procedure alone cost us $18,000 after insurance. Our son Andy was starting his junior year at State, and we still owed $28,000 in student loans from his first 2 years. I was supposed to be the steady one, the provider, the guy who always figured things out. I typed back, all good, talk tonight. Couldn't tell her yet, not like this. The next few minutes felt surreal. I watched people pack up my desk from across the office. Kevin Patterson from HR was supervising, making sure they didn't miss anything. Kevin had always treated the older employees like we were fossils waiting to be excavated. He'd been pushing the digital transformation agenda for 2 years, which basically meant replacing anyone over 40 with fresh graduates who'd work for half the salary. I left the call without saying a word. Just clicked out and sat there, breathing like I'd been sucker punched. The house felt different, smaller somehow. I pulled out the bottom drawer of my desk, the one I never opened anymore. There it was, a black flash drive I'd labeled System Archive 18 months ago. Just a backup of key documentation, nothing more. But looking at it now, I knew exactly what I had to do. The rest of that day crawled by. I kept checking my phone, expecting someone to call and explain this was all a mistake. Nobody did. Around 3 p.m. I drove to the grocery store just to get out of the house. Standing in the cereal aisle, watching normal people do normal things, I felt like I was watching life through a window I couldn't open. That evening, Linda could tell something was wrong the second I walked through the door. We'd been married 22 years. She could read me like a road sign. "Mike, what happened?" she asked, setting down her book. I sat beside her on our old couch, the one we'd bought when Andy was in middle school. "They let me go today." Her face went pale. Not surprise pale, fear pale. "What do you mean, let you go?" I told her everything. The call, the replacement, the whole setup. She listened without interrupting, her hand finding mine halfway through. When I finished, we sat in silence for a long moment. "What are we going to do?" she asked quietly. "I don't know yet, but we'll figure it out." The next few days were dead quiet from Harrison's end. No calls, no emails, no follow-up from anyone, like I'd never existed. I spent the time going through old files trying to make sense of what had happened. That's when I found the first clue. 18 months ago, I'd developed a proprietary logistics optimization system on my own time. Called it FlowMax. It was a side project, something I'd been tinkering with to solve inefficiencies I saw every day at work. I'd shown it to the company during a quarterly review, thinking they might license it or let me implement it officially. Brandon and his father had seemed interested, but said it wasn't quite what they needed. 8 months later, Harrison launched their new revolutionary logistics system. Same optimization patterns, same algorithmic approach, same core logic as Flomax. They'd taken my work, stripped my name off it, and rolled it into their corporate infrastructure without paying me a dime. I had everything documented. Original development logs, timestamps, version control history, even the email thread where I'd pitched it to them, all sitting on that black flash drive. Thursday morning brought the final insult. A FedEx truck pulled up, and the driver handed me an envelope without making eye contact. Inside was a termination letter, an NDA that basically said I couldn't talk about anything that happened at Harrison, and a 4-page non-compete agreement that looked like it had been drafted by someone with a serious grudge. The non-compete was brutal. It barred me from working anywhere in manufacturing logistics for 18 months. At my age, in this economy, that might as well have been a career death sentence. They weren't just firing me, they were trying to make sure I never worked in my field again. I filed for unemployment that afternoon, figured I'd at least get something while I regrouped. 3 days later, denied. Reason: termination for cause. My jaw clenched so hard I thought I might crack a tooth. What cause? I hadn't even gotten a warning, let alone a write-up. I called the unemployment office, waited 42 minutes to talk to someone who told me the company claimed I'd violated performance and behavioral standards. No appeal without legal documentation from the company. That's when I knew this wasn't just a layoff. This was a coordinated attack designed to destroy me professionally and financially. That night, I made a decision that would change everything. That night, I called Chuck Rodriguez. Chuck wasn't some fancy corporate lawyer with a corner office and a $1,000 suit. I found him through my brother-in-law, who said Chuck handled employment cases and didn't back down when things got ugly. He showed up at Mel's Diner off Route 9 the next evening, carrying a beat-up leather briefcase and wearing jeans that had seen better days. My kind of guy. I laid out the whole story over coffee and pie. Chuck listened, took notes on napkins, and when I finished, he leaned back in the booth and studied me for a long moment. "They're trying to bury you," he said finally. "This isn't normal termination. They want you gone, quiet, and unable to compete." He tapped his pen on the table. "But here's the thing. There's a new state law taking effect January 1st. Kills most non-competes retroactively. You just need to stay clean until then. So I wait 6 months? You prepare. Quietly. Document everything. And when that law hits, you walk through clean." He leaned forward. "But Mike, you need to understand. They've got resources. This is going to be a fight." I thought about Linda's medical bills, Andy's tuition, our mortgage. I'm ready for a fight. The next few weeks were the hardest. I watched our savings account shrink while I applied for jobs that either didn't exist or mysteriously disappeared after initial interviews. Word travels fast in manufacturing. Somehow everyone knew I was difficult or not a cultural fit before I even walked in the door. Linda tried to hide how worried she was, but I could see it in the way she counted pills before taking her medication, making sure she didn't waste any. Her next cardiology appointment was coming up, and we both knew it meant more tests, more bills. Andy came home for a weekend visit in late October. Smart kid, studying mechanical engineering, but he could sense the tension the moment he walked through the door. "Dad, everything okay?" he asked while we were working on his car in the garage. I kept my hands busy with the wrench. "Just some work stuff. Nothing you need to worry about. I heard you and Mom talking about money last night." He paused. "Look, I can take a semester off, get a job, help out." I looked at my son, 20 years old, trying to be the man of the house because his old man had screwed up. "No, you stay in school. That's not negotiable. But Dad, Andy." I set down the wrench and looked at him straight. Sometimes life kicks you in the teeth. That doesn't mean you quit. It means you get back up and show it what you're made of. While I was having that conversation, I was also having another one, with Tony Williams and Nick Johnson, two guys I'd mentored over the years who'd moved on to other companies. Tony was running operations at a mid-sized distributor across town. Nick had landed at a consulting firm that specialized in supply chain optimization. Both of them knew what I was capable of, and both of them were disgusted by what Harrison had done. "Mike, this is garbage," Tony said when I called him. "You built that place from the ground up." "Brandon Walsh is a joke," Nick added. "Everyone in the industry knows his daddy handed him that position." "I'm thinking about starting something," I told them. "Clean slate, no shortcuts, just good work." "When?" Tony asked. January 1st, when my non-compete dies. We're in. We started meeting at Tony's garage after hours. Nothing official, just three guys talking shop over beer and pizza. We weren't planning to copy anything. We were going to build something better from scratch. We called it Logicor. The name came from Nick during one of our late-night sessions. Core values, core competency, core team, he said. Everything Harrison pretends to have but doesn't. By December, we had the basic framework mapped out. Tony would handle client relations and operations. Nick would run the technical consulting side. I'd oversee system architecture and implementation. Clean, simple, no ego conflicts. Meanwhile, Harrison was starting to crack. Word got around through old contacts that their new Wonder Kid replacement had crashed the main production server twice in his first month. Client deliveries were running 3 to 4 days behind schedule. The system I'd spent 17 years perfecting was dying under someone who thought book learning was the same as real experience. I got a call in mid-November from Rick Anderson, the CTO at Midwest Logistics, one of Harrison's biggest competitors. We'd known each other for years, mutual respect, even though we worked for rivals. Mike, heard about what happened, Rick said. That's a raw deal. It is what it is. Look, I'll be straight with you. We've been watching Harrison stumble for the last few months. Their clients are getting frustrated. When your non-compete ends, give me a call. We might have some opportunities. That conversation told me everything I needed to know. Harrison wasn't just losing efficiency. They were losing reputation. In manufacturing, reputation is everything. Once clients start questioning your reliability, the damage spreads fast. December brought more bad news for Harrison. 3 of their biggest clients terminated contracts early, citing service inconsistencies. Their stock price dropped 12% in 2 weeks. Brandon was scrambling, trying to hire consultants to fix problems he'd created by getting rid of institutional knowledge. But the real breakthrough came 3 days before Christmas. I was at the kitchen table going through old files for the 100th time when I found something I'd missed before. Buried in the Flomax development logs was a time-stamped communication thread with an outside vendor. The timestamps proved beyond doubt that my system had been fully operational 6 months before Harrison claimed to have invented their version. More importantly, I found email evidence that Brandon himself had approved the decision to reverse engineer my system after I'd left, thinking I'd never be able to prove ownership. I called Chuck immediately. "You found what?" he asked. "Email trail. Brandon approving the theft. Time-stamped, documented, everything." There was a long pause. "Mike, they just handed us the case. File everything you've got. We're going after them for IP theft, wrongful termination, and age discrimination. How strong is our position?" They're cooked. On New Year's Eve, Linda and I sat on our back porch watching fireworks in the distance. The temperature was just above freezing, but we wrapped up in blankets and stayed outside anyway. "What's different about tomorrow?" she asked. "Tomorrow I stop being their victim," I said. "Tomorrow I become their problem." At 12:01 a.m. on January 1st, my non-compete agreement officially died. At 12:02 a.m., I was legally free to compete with Harrison Manufacturing. At 8 o'clock a.m., Chuck filed our lawsuit. At 9 o'clock a.m., Logicor officially opened for business. The real fight was just beginning. The first week of January felt like the calm before a tornado. Chuck had filed our paperwork, but legal wheels turned slowly. Harrison's lawyers would need time to respond, and we'd need time to build our case. Meanwhile, Logicor needed to actually start functioning as a business. Tony had secured us office space in an industrial park on the east side of town. Nothing fancy, just 200 square feet of concrete floors and fluorescent lights. But it was ours, and it was clean. We set up shop with folding tables, secondhand computers, and a coffee maker that Nick bought at a garage sale. Our first client came through Rick Anderson at Midwest Logistics. Nothing huge, a small manufacturing outfit that needed help streamlining their delivery routes. The kind of job that would have been beneath Harrison's notice, but perfect for us to prove our concept. "We don't need to revolutionize the industry on day one," I told Tony and Nick as we mapped out the project. "We just need to show we can solve problems better than the competition." The project took us 3 weeks. What would have taken Harrison 6 weeks and cost the client $50,000, we delivered in 3 weeks for $18,000. More importantly, we improved their delivery efficiency by 23%. Real, measurable results they could see in their bottom line. Word started getting around. Manufacturing is a small world, and news travels fast when someone new is doing good work. By mid-February, we had 4 active clients and a waiting list of 6 more. Meanwhile, Harrison was hemorrhaging. Their stock price had dropped another 8% since New Year's. Two more major clients had jumped ship, including one that had been with them for 12 years. Brandon was doing damage control interviews, blaming market conditions and temporary adjustments, but everyone in the industry could see what was really happening. The kid they'd hired to replace me lasted exactly 73 days. According to my sources inside the company, he'd been reassigned to special projects, which was corporate speak for fired, but we don't want to admit our mistake. They brought in a consulting firm to try to fix the damage, but you can't consult your way out of fundamental system failures. Chuck called me on a Thursday morning in late February with an update on our case. Their lawyers are stalling, he said. Lots of procedural motions, discovery delays, the usual corporate playbook. But Mike, they're scared. Really scared. How can you tell? They offered to settle. That caught my attention. For how much? $75,000 and a mutual non-disclosure agreement. I thought about our bills, Linda's upcoming procedure, Andy's tuition. $75,000 would solve a lot of immediate problems, but it would also mean letting them get away with what they'd done. What do you think? I asked. I think they're lowballing us because they know they're guilty. The evidence we have is rock solid. We can do better. Then we keep fighting. Harrison's decline accelerated through March. Their new consulting firm published a report recommending they rebuild core operational systems from the ground up. The estimated cost, $2.3 million and 18 months of implementation time. Essentially, they needed to recreate everything I'd built over 17 years, but they had to do it without me and without the institutional knowledge I'd taken with me. Logicor, meanwhile, was thriving. We'd grown to 12 clients and had hired 2 additional consultants. Our reputation was spreading through industry conferences and trade publications. We weren't trying to be the biggest firm, we were trying to be the best. The breakthrough came in early April. Linda was getting ready for her procedure, a catheter ablation that the cardiologist said would significantly improve her condition. The surgery was scheduled for April 15th, and we'd finally scraped together enough to cover the $22,000 cost without going into debt. That's when Harrison made their second settlement offer, $180,000. Chuck called me while I was sitting in the hospital waiting room during Linda's pre-op appointment. They're getting desperate, he said. Discovery is killing them. Every document we uncover makes their case worse. What did you find? Internal emails discussing the Thompson problem 6 months before they fired you. Meeting notes about finding younger talent to replace legacy employees. And the smoking gun. A memo from Kevin Patterson recommending they accelerate your termination before you could claim ownership of Flomax. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. They planned this. They planned all of it. The theft, the termination, even the performance claims for your unemployment denial. This wasn't a business decision, Mike. This was a coordinated attack. Linda emerged from her appointment looking tired but optimistic. The doctor was confident about the procedure and her insurance would cover more than we'd originally thought. For the first time in months, she looked like she could see light at the end of the tunnel. How did the call go? She asked as we walked to the car. They offered more money. How much more? $180,000. She stopped walking. Mike, that's... She paused, calculating in her head. That would pay off Andy's loans, cover my surgery, maybe even let us fix the roof. I know. But you're not taking it. It wasn't a question. She knew me well enough to read my face. They stole from me, Linda. They tried to destroy my career. If I take their money and sign their NDA, they get away with it. Next guy who threatens them gets the same treatment. She was quiet for a long moment, then she reached over and squeezed my hand. Then we see this through, she said. Chuck filed our response that afternoon. Settlement rejected. See you in court. Harrison's third offer came 2 weeks later. $275,000 plus a consulting agreement that would have essentially made me a silent partner in their recovery efforts. They want to buy you, Chuck explained. Keep you quiet and use your expertise to fix what they broke. What's your read? They're terrified of going to trial. Discovery has been a nightmare for them. Every document we subpoena makes them look worse. Their stock price is in free fall, and they're facing a class action lawsuit from shareholders, adding a public wrongful termination case where they'd have to explain their age discrimination policies. They can't afford that kind of exposure. So we're winning? We're winning. The question is how big we want to win. That night, Linda had her procedure. I sat in the waiting room for 4 hours, drinking terrible coffee and thinking about everything that had brought us to this point. The surgery went perfectly. When she woke up in recovery, her heart rhythm was already more stable than it had been in over a year. "How do you feel?" I asked. "Like I can breathe again," she said. "Really breathe." That's when I knew we were doing the right thing. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about being able to breathe again, to live without fear, to know that doing the right thing still mattered. Chuck called the next morning. They want to meet, face to face. No lawyers, just principals. Brandon wants to talk. Brandon and his father, they're ready to deal. I thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. Set it up. The meeting was scheduled for the following Tuesday at a conference room in a neutral office building downtown. After 4 months of legal warfare, I was finally going to look Brandon Walsh in the eye and find out what he was really made of. It was time to finish this. The conference room smelled like stale coffee and desperation. Neutral territory, some generic office building downtown with beige walls and motivational posters about teamwork. Brandon Walsh sat across from me, flanked by his father Gerald and their lead attorney. They looked like they hadn't slept well in weeks. I brought Chuck, but this was really between Brandon and me. 4 months of legal warfare had led to this moment, and everybody in that room knew it. Gerald Walsh spoke first. He was in his early 70s, still sharp, but you could see the weight of watching his company crumble in real time. "Mike, we've known each other for a long time," he started. "You did good work for us. This whole situation got out of hand." I kept my face neutral. "It did. We're prepared to offer a final settlement. $425,000 plus a 5-year consulting contract at $150,000 annually. You help us rebuild what was lost, and everyone moves forward." I did the math in my head. $1.175 million total. Life-changing money. Andy's college paid for, Linda's medical bills gone, our mortgage cleared. Financial security for the first time in years. "There's one condition," Brandon added, speaking for the first time. "Full non-disclosure agreement. What happened here stays here." That was the moment I understood what this was really about. They weren't trying to make things right. They were trying to buy my silence. Let them continue their age discrimination practices, their IP theft, their systematic destruction of older employees, just as long as they paid me enough to keep quiet about it. "I need to ask you something, Brandon," I said. "Did you really think I was too old to do my job?" He shifted uncomfortably. It wasn't about age. It was about fit, about adapting to new methodologies. "That's not what your emails say." Chuck slid a printout across the table. Internal communication from Brandon to Kevin Patterson, dated 3 months before my termination. "We need to transition away from legacy employees who resist modernization. Thompson represents old-school thinking that's holding us back." Brandon's face went red. That was taken out of context. "Here's another one," Chuck said, sliding over a second document. "Kevin Patterson to HR. Recommend accelerating Thompson termination before Flomax ownership becomes an issue. Easier to claim proprietary development if he's not here to contest it." The room went dead silent. Even their lawyer looked uncomfortable. "You didn't just fire me," I said. "You planned to steal my work and then eliminate me as a witness. You coordinated the whole thing." Gerald Walsh looked older than when he'd walked in. "Mike, please, let's focus on moving forward." "No," I said, standing up. "I've heard enough." I walked to the window and looked out at the city. Somewhere out there, Logicor was handling client calls and solving real problems. Tony was probably debugging a delivery route optimization. Nick was likely presenting a cost analysis to a potential client. We'd built something clean, something honest. $425,000 is generous," Brandon said behind me. "More than you'd likely get at trial." I turned around. "You're right. It is generous. It's also an admission of guilt. It's a business decision. It's hush money." I sat back down. "Here's what's going to happen. We're going to trial. All of it. The age discrimination, the IP theft, the coordinated conspiracy to destroy my career. It's all going on public record." Their lawyer leaned forward. "Mr. Thompson, trials are unpredictable. You could lose everything. I could. But you definitely will." Chuck smiled slightly. "Mike, maybe we should discuss—" "No discussion." I looked directly at Brandon. "You want to know what old school thinking gets you? It gets you integrity. It gets you principles. It gets you the ability to sleep at night knowing you didn't sell out." Gerald Walsh tried one more time. Son, be practical. Take the money. Start fresh. I am starting fresh. With Logicor, we've got 18 clients now, and we're booked solid through August. We don't need your money because we're building something better than what you destroyed. The meeting ended 10 minutes later. No handshakes, no pleasantries. Just the sound of chairs scraping against linoleum as everyone stood up to leave. Chuck and I walked to the parking garage in silence. Finally, he spoke. You realize you just turned down over $1 million. I turned down blood money. The trial's going to be brutal. They'll try to destroy you publicly. Let them try. The trial started 6 weeks later. Courthouse in downtown Springfield, Judge Patricia Morrison presiding. The local business journal covered it, and news of the age discrimination claims brought out reporters from 3 regional papers. Harrison's legal team was everything you'd expect: expensive suits, practiced arguments, and a strategy designed to paint me as a disgruntled employee trying to cash in on corporate success. They claimed Flomax was developed using company resources, that my termination was performance-based, and that Logicor represented corporate espionage. Chuck methodically destroyed every argument. The time-stamped development logs proved I'd created Flomax on my own time using my own equipment. The performance reviews showed 17 years of excellent ratings right up until my termination. The email trail demonstrated clear age discrimination and premeditated IP theft. But the moment that sealed their fate came when Chuck called Kevin Patterson to the witness stand. Mr. Patterson, in your email to HR dated September 15th, you wrote, and I quote, "Thompson represents old-school thinking that's holding us back." Can you explain what you meant by old-school thinking? Kevin squirmed. Just that he was resistant to new technologies. Mr. Thompson designed and implemented the logistics system that saved Harrison Manufacturing $1.2 million in efficiency improvements. Would you consider that resistant to new technology? That was different. Different how? He was set in his ways. Set in his ways. Can you be more specific about what ways those were? Kevin looked at Harrison's lawyer, who couldn't help him. Older employees sometimes don't adapt as quickly. Older employees. Are you saying his age was a factor in his termination? The courtroom was dead silent. That's not what I meant. Chuck let it hang there for a full 10 seconds before continuing. By the time he was done, Kevin had essentially admitted to systematic age discrimination while trying to deny it. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty on all counts: wrongful termination, age discrimination, intellectual property theft, and conspiracy to defraud. Total damages: $125,000 in compensation, $200,000 in punitive damages, plus ongoing licensing fees of $8,500 per month for continued use of the Flomax system. I kept my face neutral when the verdict was read. No celebration, no victory dance. Just stood up, shook Chuck's hand, and walked out. Outside the courthouse, a reporter asked how I felt. "Justice isn't about feeling good," I said. "It's about making sure this doesn't happen to the next guy." 6 months later, I stood in Logicor's new office. We'd outgrown the industrial park and moved into a proper building with windows and conference rooms. 23 employees now, including 4 engineers over 45 who'd been pushed out of other companies for being legacy thinkers. My phone buzzed. Monthly licensing payment from Harrison, $8,500. They'd tried to rebuild their system twice to avoid paying me, but each attempt had failed spectacularly. They were stuck with my architecture, and they paid for it every month. Brandon Walsh had been transitioned out of the company 3 months after the trial. Kevin Patterson was fired for cause. Gerald Walsh retired and sold his controlling interest to a private equity firm that specialized in turnarounds. Andy graduated college debt-free last spring. Linda's heart condition was completely under control. We'd paid off the mortgage and finally fixed that roof. But the best part wasn't the money. It was the call I got from a 52-year-old engineer in Cleveland who'd read about our case in the trade magazines. His company was trying to push him into early retirement, and he wanted to know if Chuck would take his case. "Do you have documentation?" I asked. "Everything. Emails, performance reviews, the whole paper trail. Then fight them. And when you win, remember that somebody else is going to need help after you. That's not revenge. That's justice. And justice has a way of spreading when good people refuse to stay quiet." The black flash drive still sits in my desk drawer, labeled System Archive. Everything we built was fresh, nothing borrowed, nothing stolen. We didn't need to copy what they had. We just built it better. Some lessons are worth more than money. Some fights are worth having even when you could walk away rich. And sometimes the old guy really does know best.